that actually does say yes, the money is actually going specifically for what the stated purpose was. Generally governments, when they raise bonds, it generally goes to consolidated fund. So then government uses it where it feels it needs to spend the money. In this particular instance, it can only be used for specific purposes. In the same way with ECAL, the Environmental Climate Adaptation Levy that you pay of 10%. As put in law by government, is that the ECAL funds can only be specifically used for environmental and climate adaptation projects and initiatives. And again, by law in that, we also have to specifically publish where exactly the monies are being spent. From that, of course, we believe we'll be able to raise about $90 million through that specific project. And and these things do cost a lot of money. We saw the village in Ba, that the Honourable Minister for Agriculture and Minister of Disaster Management was there only last week, where a village had to be moved because of landslide issues, because of change in terrain. We've already had 3 villages moved to higher ground. But it's not just simply about removing or relocating a village, it's also about other issues or ancillary matters that relate to it. Things like sustainable livelihoods. If people were living in a particular area and they may have had farms, etc., or they may have a particular lifestyle, that would actually be affected if they are going to now live on, say, higher ground. Access to water, what type of resources they're going to use. So it's a whole sort of plethora of issues that need to be addressed to be able to address one challenge because of climate change.
So you talked about the cost of rebuilding electricity infrastructure post-DC Winston, and you said that the pre-COP dialogues that you had rebuilt, but you weren't necessarily satisfied that it was climate resilient. Is this one of the earmarked projects that will get the benefits of this?
Well, it can be in the future, of course, because these things do take a lot of planning too. It's simply just because something's going overhead, you don't simply dig a hole and put it in there. You may need to, obviously need to see the terrain and all of that. So it requires a lot of planning. But most certainly, underground cabling of electricity, of course, is very, very important. The green bonds also qualify for clean transport too. A lot of issues pertaining to transportation. The types of vehicles that we use, what type of technology we can bring in. Public transportation needs to be improved. So this is why, it all sinks in. As announced in the budget, for example, now bus companies will be given a 15-year license, straight up. Now that gives them a level of confidence. The service license that they have, the road service license they have, they can now mortgage it. The road service license they can have, if they are a company that earns less than $1.5 million gross turnover, when they go to a bank to buy a new bus, they don't pay more than 5% interest rate. It all fits in. So that means they can buy buses with newer technology, which means a less carbon footprint. Now, through these green bonds, we may be able to assist other bus companies, in terms of adopting new technology. There's of course a need for us to be able to meet our nationally determined contributions, which is in respect of the carbon footprint. So how do you do that? And one of the ways that you do that is also the introduction of fuel standards that are of higher standards. At the moment, parts of Europe have got Euro 6. We're in Euro 2. So obviously if you move up to Euro 4, Euro 5, there's not much difference between Euro 4 and Euro 5. So if you go up to Euro 5, they also would be an opportunity or need to essentially ensure that those vehicles may need to adopt new technology. So this is how those funds actually can be used. It of course not only helps us meet our NDCs, but also it ensures that we have a cleaner environment, use better technology, reduce our dependency on fossil fuel. So it all ties in well with that.
So with regards to the NDCs and the reduction of our dependency on fossil fuels, what efforts is the government making to reduce our importation of those vehicles which are not eco-friendly?
What do you mean not eco-friendly?
Those which use only fossil fuels and not renewable energy.
Well, we've done lots of things. We've reduced zero-rated duty on hybrid vehicles. And this is why you see so many of those hybrid vehicles on the roads, because the duty was reduced, zero-rated duty.
Is there any measure to reduce importations of those other vehicles which don't run on renewable energy?
Well, I think at the moment the reality is that it's not saying, well, let's stop the vehicles from coming in. You got to say what are your alternative energy sources. You can't say don't introduce this, let's only introduce new technology, but new technology requires the right level, right type of fuel. So you have to work that end of it too. So it's not just simply a question of just targeting one area. You have to think it through.
Are we working on those other angles? Improving our reliance on our use of renewable energy?
No, now you're talking about renewable energy, which is different to motor vehicles. Right? Motor vehicles, new technology is different to renewable energy. So let's finish the conversation on the motor vehicles. Motor vehicles, of course, we've reduced the duty on hybrid vehicles, and we've seen an increase in hybrid vehicles. Then you have to move on to the next stage. If you see the budget, we've of course given tax incentives for people who, for example, invest in charging stations. So you get various tax holidays. Now in the budget, we've also reduced the threshold. So if you have investment of $500,000, you get various tax holidays. So that's part of one issue. The other issue, of course, is that in order to get newer technology, you need to work with the fuel companies to ensure that they bring in the right type of Euro standard fuels. In respect of renewable energy, of course, government is working very thoroughly on renewable energy, and that's very much part of the thrust. And we have seen, again, there's various tax incentives if you provide renewable energy, if you invest in renewable energy. FEA has shouted from the treetops about their programs in respect of renewable energy. They have done some downstream weirs, they're doing some more weirs that they're looking at. So that's all part of renewable energy, and it's very much focus of what we'll be doing.
Are you getting a good response from private sector with regards to your efforts to give them incentives to do better work in terms of land use?
Better work in, sorry?
Are you getting the tax holidays and the incentives that you're providing
for what?
The private sector?
For in which area?
With regards to the charging stations, for example, that sort of thing. With regards to companies that provide.
Yeah, I think the like anything, charging stations is something that's new. You obviously, it's a new area of investment. People eventually will do it. In the same way, when you provide tax incentives for people who set up hospitals, private hospitals, there was not much uptake of it, but suddenly now you've got MEOT. So these things take time. People need to plan the cash flow. Just because you make an announcement, you don't expect to have them investing in 2 months' time or 3 months' time or even 6 months' time. You need to create the right climate. People will see, okay, the government's focused, they've got green bonds, they're actually serious about it. They've got now companies that are given a 15-year license so they can get access to cheaper finance. So that means the uptake of people to buy new technology will be a lot greater. So therefore, if there's an appetite for that, therefore they'll have an appetite to use charging stations. It all kind of flows. So these things actually take a little bit of a lead time. And that is, we've managed to put together the green bonds through the assistance of RBF and also IFC and World Bank and the Ministry of Economy team in a matter of 3 months. There are some countries that have been working on it for quite some time, and they still have not been able to accomplish it. This is why we are the only third one to have done so. So again, it is a huge accolade for Fiji, in particular, to be going off to Bonn, COP23. With the green bonds already launched, and we had made the announcement in the budget in June, and within 3 months it was all put together, so which is great for us. It gives us a very good footprint. It also received a lot of positive feedback, a lot of positive responses in the pre-COP meeting that we had in Denver. Okay, no more questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mervyn.